Alo, alo, âm thanh, ánh sáng, alo, alo. Tốt rồi, lên rồi. Bát check đầy đủ. Đối đầu với Hoàng Minh Nhi và Phan Nhất. Tết nhất đến nơi rồi mà tớ vẫn chưa được về quê ăn Tết. Về quê thì mục đích chính của tớ đấy là xem nghĩa đục lợn thì vào làm với bộ lòng, làm bát tiết canh. Thế là ngủ ấm ổ 5 ngày Tết. Ăn bánh chưng nhân nấp mề vào, không màng thế sự. Chào anh Trần Đình Đại nhá. Chào anh Trần Lục Khuê. Và hai cái thằng này nó thế thì thằng Thầu thì chắc chắn nó không chịu cõng anh em rồi. Bây giờ nó là sao? Chào anh Tùng Viết Nguyễn nhá. Thế như vậy là anh là Nguyễn Tùng Viết đúng không? Anh là em trai của Nguyễn Tùng Thi đúng không? Ôi trời ơi, lão pháp sư người linh đàm lão quạ đấy thấy không?
Còn dương này, một quả đấy hay quả khác này.
From iconic pistols that have become synonymous with secret agent to the Pistol Parabellum 1908, or P08 as it was officially known, would go on to be adopted by the German army and see extensive service during World War I and throughout the Second World War.
The Luger pistol, Jonathan, I always associate it with Nazi high command, but it's actually used in the First World War, isn't it? What are the origins of the semi-automatic pistol? Is it the first to be introduced in warfare?
So it's not the first to be produced, it's probably not even the first to see action, but it's up there. It's one of the, it's maybe the first truly combat capable.
These are the results we're going to have. We're going to have to ask ourselves the hard questions. We're going to have to figure out where we're going into the next season, with Shanghai obviously being on the horizon.
And it sees limited military procurement by some nations, but
well, let's take
the
a look at
nations
some
of
of
the
the
world still
results so
feeling their
far
way with
at this tournament to kind of
So
contextualise
1908,
this.
well,
How
1904,
would you weigh up
German Navy
both
adopted
sides of the
this.
equation, Babsky? Is there a
1908
stronger team at the
for the
moment?
P08s.
I mean, on paper, I think Spirit is the better team,
Parabellum
right?
is
But what Navi has
true,
did
correct
in
name,
that semi-finals
but
is
Georg
pretty unique,
Luger,
right?
the design
There's
has been
probably
so
no easy
associated with
chance
design
like we saw them playing against Australis to
as the
multiply
Luger.
them, right? And then
Anyone
they go
that
into
doesn't have a
the
need for a
semi-finals as kind of
rifle,
favorites in my
except
opinion.
before the
And
submachine
they
gun
just get
comes in, and
obliterated
before
on their
everything
own map.
You're going to
I'm
get
surprised by
it's a
Navi, and I
machine.
think JL said it pretty well yesterday that they have the better
Developed from the
analyst
Gewehr
and coach, and I
98
think it
rifle
meant a
used
lot.
during
I
the
mean,
First
listen, we
World
will
War.
always shower blade with
Carabiner
compliments. I mean, if
98K
you love Counter-Strike, you know what he brings to the
became
table.
the standard
But what I do
issue
really like is that we've
of
had
Wehrmacht,
a different
with close to
side, different
15
sides of
million
Navis
being
throughout
produced
London. We've
from
had obviously the flow
1935
state,
to the
and
end
we've
of
all
the
witnessed
war.
here against BP. This first map felt
Jonathan,
like a Hollywood
Picard
movie,
98,
where everything was clicking, everything was
this is
working well,
the standard
and it is
issue of
easy to
faction.
win in that state. But we've
I'm
also
Dan
seen them
Snow. At the
work
time
their way
of the
back into
80th
games.
anniversary
We're
of the
talking
D-Day
about comeback
landings,
versus
I'm gonna
Astralis. We're
pick
talking
some of the
about
best and most
0-7 third map versus Fate.
looked like and felt like on Omaha Beach, which was the bloodiest of the 5 beaches which were assaulted by Allied troops on D-Day. This scene for me just encapsulates the sheer horror of what it must have been like going ashore. It's at the first, what I like is there's a calm before the storm. You see them going in these landing craft, heavily laden down. That people are being sick. That a lot of the troops were sick on D-Day. It was a lot rougher than people were expecting. And then suddenly, that ramp goes down at the front, and German machine gun fire rakes through that unit. Now, there are units on Omaha Omaha in particular that would have suffered casualties like this. There are units that were almost wiped out on Omaha in particular. And the other thing you see here, which is pretty accurate, is a lot of those landing craft, they ended up in the wrong place. There's a lot more drift along the coast than people had allowed for in the planning. And they ended up hitting sandbanks, sandbars, obstacles. The crew would let down the ramp at the front thinking they were on the beach, and the men would jump out into deep water. Some would drown. They'd been weighed down by their kit. You get a sense of struggling ashore here. Folks, you can see the wooden posts, the wooden ramps with mines on top. So when a landing craft came near, they might trigger those mines, blow a hole in the side of the boat or the ship. It's the hardest thing in warfare, to make an opposed beach landing. You've got to deal with the sea, you've got to deal with the weather, you've got to deal with the difficulty of getting ashore, and the enemy are entrenched. They've got bunkers and barbed wire. In the case of Omaha, which we see here, the enemy have got the advantage of significant height. It's quite a hilly place, Omaha. There are cliffs and bluffs looking down, and as you see, the Germans are able to look right down on the beach. You'd have had to fire shorter bursts on that machine gun, the MG42. It's an air-cooled machine gun, and if you fired that quickly, the whole barrel would melt. But these things are small equipment. I've read one account from a guy driving a vehicle up the beach on Omaha. He managed to get the vehicle ashore from a landing craft, but he couldn't maneuver on the beach because there were so many dead and wounded men lying around on the beach that he felt he'd be crushing his own wounded comrades. He didn't feel he could do that, so it was a bulldozer. In fact, it just stayed static on the beach, and other men hid behind it, desperately cowering behind anything that could give some shelter from the vicious fire that was coming in from the bluffs above, the defences above. It's a harrowing depiction of warfare here, and at the time it was even more harrowing. We hadn't seen movie-making special effects like this in the late 90s. You see men losing limbs, you see men blown into the air, a flamethrower operator explodes. It's very troubling indeed, and in fact when this movie came out it was very triggering for a lot of World War II veterans. They had to set up helplines so people that had been there could actually call in and talk to therapists. Remember, 55 years after landing successfully, there's a lot of guys still alive, they'd be in their 70s, who would have experienced these beach landings and other things. What I like about this is to see the sense of what it wasn't, the plan went out that the tanks didn't arrive. Reloading!
This is where something
founded in the choppy
weapons
sea
over here!
And sadly they're still there to this day. And what it came down to on Omaha was
I hear a hunt.
lieutenants, captains, sergeants, relatively junior ranks making decisions, leading just small groups of men forward, smelling and sniffing
No!
that German defensive system. And you get a great you see Tom Hanks as a captain, he's leading his men, he's looking for opportunities, and
Check this
eventually
out.
they just find a bit of cover, they find that seawall, they're able to regroup, they're able to use the so-called Bangalore torpedo that's a long explosive device that will blast holes in barbed wire, and by small groups
this'll
of
blow
highly
something up.
motivated, skilled men like this, they're able to get into and through the German defences. And Omaha, morning on Omaha, despite appalling casualties, groups of men are able to get onto those bluffs and those cliffs and eventually chill tops a couple of hours after the landing. You see the powerful German defences, the concrete pillboxes, barbed wire, trench lines. What this shows as well is that when you infiltrate around and behind, they're quite vulnerable. It's a strong defensive line, but it was a brittle one. And once you punch through it, you come round behind, and the Germans will be in trouble because these defensive lines. It's easier to kill